Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we are changing the mental health narrative, bringing hope and solutions. Here's your host, Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist.
Suzanne Roberts is the founder of Unifying Solutions. She's a coach, an author, a facilitator, and speaker with over 5 decades of experience guiding individuals, leaders, and systems toward generating sustainable change. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's delightful to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
As usual, I hope you can get us started by talking a little bit about how you got into the work you're doing and what drives your passion for it, and what you most want people to take from your book. Deeper than that. It's deeper than that. The pathway to a vibrant, purposeful, and liberated life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for asking that. Well, it's interesting. I'm actually integrating in my life right now legacy work, which I'm really calling from the book, The Great Reconnection. Really how to have a soul-led life, whether it's leadership or loving or being within yourself. And I've been an executive coach and consultant for many, many years with my company, Unifying Solutions. And I've done a lot of racial equity work and all kinds of things. I've worked in prison, bringing leadership within a men's prison. And on the side, I was teaching polarity therapy, which is a system of how energy, it talks about a wireless system of how energy operates through form to remember itself. So we could say our soul consciousness is operating through form to remember itself. So as human beings, we have an opportunity in this life to turn our attention inward and have contact with this very living energy, which is our soul, which is a drop of the eternal ocean of love. We don't generate our own energy. It's a gift that's given to us, and it's up to us to decide if we want to tune into that gift or not. So I really applied this concept of soul consciousness operating through form to human development and social development, and I'm now calling that the Great Reconnection. I talk about it as polarity in the book, but I'm synthesizing now this energy system with all the work I've done with coaching. And really, I just started my first cohort of the Great Reconnection Signature Leadership Program, bringing leaders through a 6-month cohort to help them be soul-led. And what does that mean? What does it mean for your soul to inform leadership? And so that's what I'm up to now. What I hope people get from the book is really a few different things. One is I take people on a journey, my journey of healing from childhood sexual abuse, and using this model of energy to restore me internally. And then that's the first section of the book. The second section of the book is called You. The first section's me, then it's you. How does this living model of energy work, and what can we learn from it? How can we learn about, what's the difference between aloneness and isolation? Or what's the difference between stillness and sedation? Or what's the difference between longing and wounding? Just to try to start getting our mind to look at things in a different way and get us out of our habit of bonding with our wounding and our surviving, and moving us towards liberation and thriving. And in the last section of the book, it's called Everyone. If life energy is in everyone and everything, how come our social systems don't reflect that? And so I built a practice called Collective Power that, in very diverse rooms with, complex diversity, that we can collectively thrive. So the book ends on a very positive note that personally and collectively that we have a pathway to find liberation. And that's what I want. I want the book to be a very uplifting, hopeful pathway towards personal and collective liberation, that it's possible and for us to think and live differently. So that's a whole big, long-winded answer to what you just asked.
Well, but it answers the question beautifully. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things that's been a guiding principle in my work for the past 51 years is what's practically effective to help the people that are coming to me. I started as a probation officer, and those people had serious problems, right? They were
whether it was a 6-year-old who was up on charges for insurance fraud, setting the family car on fire, so or the kids that were raised in the homes with the bullet holes in the kitchen walls, they didn't need psychological theory. They didn't need pie in the sky stuff. They needed practical help. And so that's been a guide of mine over the decades. And I love the way Guy Finley says that there is nothing more practical than true spirituality. And, it's what I really like about your book is the idea of helping people become aware of what their energy flow is, the fact that they have an energy flow,
Right.
the fact that their consciousness is connected to that. So say a little bit more about that, if you will, whether you want to start with the you, right, the you position or the us position in your book. How do you want to talk about what you're offering people in the polarity experience?
Well, I think that, all energy operates through energy movement. I'm going to make like the infinite practical, and I'm going to take it down to something that we can all relate to, which is a battery. So a battery conducts energy between two poles, a positive pole, a negative pole, and a neutral gradient. A battery also has a liquid medium that allows the conduction of energy in the battery. And when we turn on a light, I always like to think about, most people turn on a light and they don't think, how's the light happening? Is it coming from, people will trace it back, to the plug. Well, how's it getting to the plug? Well, there's a station. Okay, well, what's fueling the station? Is it solar? Is it wind? Is it cold? People don't know, and then I'm like, and then what's the energy in coal, or what's the energy in wind, or what's the energy in soul? What's supplying that? So I think about us. We are breathing. Our heart is beating. We are not working.
Doing it.
We are not doing that. And most of us don't go, what's letting my heart beat? We do know with death, the soul leaves the body. So we could say the soul is the current of energy that lets your heart beat. And what is the soul? I would say this, we can't know this with our mind is the thing. And this is where the challenge comes in.
Exactly.
The mind can't understand the soul, nor can the mind understand the source of energy that gives life to the soul, or the source of energy that gives life to all of creation. It is way beyond the mind. So to try to figure it out with your mind, you might as well lay that down now, because it's not going to happen. But we can cognitively think about the fact that if the soul is conducting energy, how does it do that? And compare it to the battery. So if the soul is a positive pole, like in a battery has a positive pole, in the negative pole, we would say is either the physical body, the material world. Within us, it would be our physical body. It would be our form. That the soul is sending energy through form back to itself through a neutral gradient. We call that the ideal pattern. And I have graphs in the book, and I also, in the book, you can link into a book portal where you can see me teaching this. I have meditations, I have a journaling workbook, so you can stay engaged with the book. But if we just look at that basic thing, that the soul is conducting energy, sending a current through form back to itself, that means that we are designed in an ideal way. We are designed to remember who we are as a radiant soul. And that operating system is happening inside of us while we're breathing, while our heart is beating. It's like the soul calling to itself or calling us home to it. Only most of us are paying attention to the world outside of us, not the world inside of us. And that soul is a drop of the eternal ocean of love. So we could say the eternal ocean of love is within us. And why not get to know that? Like there's so much outside of us, and why not get to know that energy current that's running inside of us, so we have access to a self-renewing energy, so that we have access to a resource inside of us that's giving us the very gift of life. And that is, and one more thing I'll say about it, in a battery, we have a liquid medium. In our physical body, how our soul conducts energy is through a liquid medium as well. And so our cerebral spinal fluid is literally conducting the energy of our soul. I think that's magnificent. Like as you and I are sitting here, whether we're paying attention to it or not, that our soul is conducting energy. The eternal essence of love is pulsing inside of us. And where's our attention? Like, why not? Why not? And one more thing, and then I'll let you ask the question. But having that living model, because I loved physics, having that living model and observing that model is how I found restoration inside myself from my trauma. Because I was like, if there's a benevolent energy sending energy through me, but I hate myself and want to die for my trauma, how can both of those things be true? So I couldn't deny away the fact that there was a benevolent source of energy inside of me because of physics. So I applied that to my self-hatred and wanting to die until I could want to live. There you have it. It was a long-winded answer, but there you go.
And it leads me to the words you recite to yourself in the mirror on a daily basis, or did anyway,
Yeah.
which is
My soul is a drop of the eternal ocean of love. So there is love inside of me. I mean, I don't remember, but I just would look in the mirror because I just hated myself and wanted to die so much from the abuse. But then there was this living reality from physics I couldn't deny. And so I just would repeat it to myself. Like I would go like this, my soul is a drop of energy, like not. But I knew it was true. And so I just kept repeating it and then I also needed, because I loved physics and chemistry, I needed to have a laboratory experiment. So I'm like, okay, I don't feel this thing I'm repeating, but let me go in the laboratory of myself and see if I can feel it or experience it. That's why I'm saying your mind can't understand it, but we can experience it.
Right.
So I went and laid on the ground in this beautiful area in California where I was alone, and I would just sit there and lay there, and I could feel the earth. I could feel gravity. I mean, I magnetized to the earth lying down, and I could see these beautiful leaves fluttering in the wind and the sky. And it was like interesting. But after I just was there for a while, all of a sudden I started to feel an energy current inside of me. And I was like, oh my God, it is true. And I think we need experience and understanding to go together. It's like just repeating it without the experience wouldn't have worked. For me, I needed to, and it's living inside of us. So I think we've experienced it, whether it's in a moment of seeing a beautiful sunset or, the love of a loved one or, something. We've had a moment where time has stopped for a second, where we've had access to a state, and that's inside of us all the time.
Yeah. I think as you're talking, I think it's Myrtle Fillmore. Do you remember the story of the Fillmores? And she had one of those serious chronic diseases that deteriorates the body. I don't know whether it was ALS or MS or something. And she hated her body, right? She was just full of rage at her body. And then somehow or another, I don't remember the exact origin of the story, she found herself sitting in front of a mirror in her wheelchair and railing it, and then deciding, let me just flip it around. Let me just sit here until I'm not so angry at my body. And then I start to appreciate my body. And then I find the radiant energy that you're referring to flowing through my body. And she did that, and a healing occurred. And that was the beginning of, she and her husband were two of the big people promoting the unity. I guess you'd call it a religion, but it's more of a spiritual movement.
Nice.
So the clarity that my intellect can provide is not the essence of what I experience. It can be used to highlight when I'm off the mark, right? So it's like, it's my intellect can't find words for, understand, or communicate about energy, that animating energy, the soul energy, whatever you want to call it, God energy. And yet it can see the effects of fighting against it, or it can see the effects of, kinks in the hoses that would let that energy flow through my system. Much like we can't see the wind, but we can see the effects of it. Mm-hmm. And so rather than setting my mind to go out and look for love, like the Course in Miracles and some other texts remind us, just look for the obstacles that you find that you're holding on to inside of yourself, the obstacles to feeling what's already there. Mm-hmm. And that just kept coming back to me as I was reading your book, that the similarities between the polarity work and what you've developed with it, and basically every great spiritual teaching that's ever resonated with me is mind-blowing. They're the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. And it's all in the mind.
Before you go into the battery, to clarify the statement, it's all in the mind. My mind just said, my obstructions to feeling the loving energy that's animating me, those obstructions are all in my mind.
Exactly.
Right? The animating energy, the truth isn't all in my mind.
No, but in the battery for energy to flow freely, for the soul to conduct freely, the mind would be the neutral gradient in the ideal pattern. But we know the mind does not stay neutral.
Exactly.
And it can't, because if we're meant to consciously remember, we have to forget to remember, right? So if otherwise we would just we wouldn't be in a world of duality.
All right, so hold on a minute. In order for us to remember,
consciously remember, right?
We have to forget to remember.
Yes.
Help me wrap my mind around that.
So the mind, when babies are born, you can see they're so ethereal because they just come from a spiritual realm into the physical realm, but their attention is still very diffuse and etheric. But as the senses start to take over and we orient towards the physical world through sight, or if you have all your senses intact. But we touch yourself right now. Doesn't it feel solid, right?
And yet we know it's not, right?
It's not, right? And so we see as if we're all different. We have the same energy inside of us, but we start looking out. Right. And we smell and we taste and we touch and we hear, and it pulls our attention out away from the center. And then we start seeking our fulfillment from the surface, like whether do we belong or can I find safety out in the world? No, mostly not.
I'm glad you use safety, because it's fulfillment and safety that, it's these two things driving when my focus is external.
External and belonging. Like who are you going to belong to, or
safety tied into belonging, right?
But in dignity and all of that, we start trying to find it out there, and it won't work. But the mind will seek itself over and over again. And then also in the book, when it shows the mind becoming the positive pole, the mind refers to the mind. So if, let's say I hate myself, and that's the dominant narrative in my mind that's not accurate because I'm a drop of love, but my mind hates, and then every experience routes, I'm unworthy, so I'm routing my mind, every experience through my wound. And the narrative and when you do that, it literally siphons the energy that could be free flowing. So you actually don't have as much potency inside. You don't have as much wellspring because you're diffusing it to outer seeking, to, I have something in my book. I read it in my book launch book and documentary launch. When you start outer seeking, you're determining who you are from changing circumstances, right? Like everything's transitory, and don't let anybody or anything outside of you or even your own mind tell you whether you have value or not. You are breathing, so you are already valuable.
Exactly.
You can't not be. So, so the mind, I think it's one of the hardest things for people to come to terms with. I always say we might have been victims to an experience in life, but we are not victims to our own soul. And so if we're leading from victimization, we're going to miss our own inherent radiance, and we don't want to take that victimization inward. And the mind is doing all the things that's keeping us from we want our mind to move more and more towards neutrality, more and more towards stillness. And it's one of the things I want to talk about in the book. I think people need to know the difference between stillness and sedation, because people think sedation is stillness. Stillness is actually very alive and dynamic.
Right. Yeah.
It's not frozen. And so I want people to know, and stillness can be hard. Sitting and working our minds towards neutrality can be hard and life-giving, whereas sedating and letting our mind run wild is also hard, but one is life-giving and one is life-taking.
Correct.
And we have to just, I don't want to ever say, oh, this is like easy, you know, like it requires commitment and dedication to say, I'm not going to indulge my mind in a wounding pattern. Or if I am, I'm going to have a pity party for 5 minutes and then stop. Or I'm just going to say, I'm going to indulge my mind, you know, but we are doing it. The experiences are over, you know, for most of us. You know, I'm not with my father anymore, you know, raping me. I'm not like, and if I could I have a choice. I can keep my attention there as if it's still happening when it's not, or find this incredible radiant life energy inside of me. And I still have to work with my mind, but I have a resource inside of me while I'm working with my mind, as opposed to a deficit.
Right. And it's an internal resource. It's you know, that infallible guidance system.
It's there all the time.
And one of the problems that I've experienced is that in our culture, this Western culture that I was raised in, I was taught, and everybody that I was raised around was taught, that when there's an upset energy inside of me, an anger, a tension, or whatever, any of the emotions I might call negative or physical sensations that I don't like, what I need to do is scan the environment to figure out who I need to attack or run away from or bribe or seduce to get them to change so I don't have to feel this.
Yes.
And the solution to that, the problems that are created by that, are me using that same energy signal of the sensation or emotion or whatever, the thoughts, etc., when they go in the negative direction, use them as a trigger to initiate an entirely different process, which is a calming and returning the focus inside with a breath and an internal focus with some simple questions like, how am I creating this right now? Rather than continuing to feed the conditioning that the outside events are causing my emotions, I wake up to the fact that this is an inside job. There's the source of energy you were talking about is flowing in and through me. Yes. Not in a sense from an external source, but from this one source, right? The connection of everything that it's what in my mind is. I'm trying to say these words again. How many times have I tried to explain this? My mind is fumbling because there aren't words to express how I can have this deep experience of being separate from you and the world around me, and then in the next moment have the felt sense of the connection of everything. Yes. So words fail, and what's next? Breath. Breath is good. Stillness. Stillness. Awareness.
Vibrant stillness, awareness, livingness.
Right. And the watching my thoughts, understanding that they aren't who I am and I don't have to believe them. I can just watch them and make observations about how when they go into a direction that produces a discomforting energy in me, I don't have to believe that. I can sit in the questioning state. I can be taught in the moment.
Exactly. You know, you're saying something that I don't think this is in the book. It's in the documentary. There's someone has many intersections of identity, but the world sees them as a Black man. And then they go by they, them as their pronouns, but they internalized a criminalized sense of themselves as if they were a threat in the world, and they believed they were a threat, and they had enough validation outside the world was a potential threat for them because, so when they experienced their living energy, they found safety in that living energy. And then they were able to go, I can observe whether outside there is danger right now or not. And there might be, but I have holiness inside of me, which no one can take away from me. And I might walk out my door and get shot. But if I'm going to walk out my door and get shot, I want to get shot while I know my own holiness. And I love that they said that, and that they were able, by experiencing, because we're already whole and holy inside. We don't have to create wholeness. We have to become it. And
well, we're already it. We have to become aware of it
and tune into it. And choose to know it, to not think it's something I have to earn. I don't earn it. It's already been given.
Yes.
Now I have to honor it. I think humility is crucial. I think there's a couple ingredients that are really crucial. One is longing to be able to sit with the ache of separation from our own deepest self in a way that's life-giving. I hunger for greater contact inside. And the more food we have, more fed we get by this loving energy, the more hungry we are for it. And to be able to sit in that ache in a beautiful, generative way. And I think people start to feel that ache of separation and they think they connect it to their wounding, so they put it over there with the wounding and don't seek inside. But I think when we understand in the battery there's an outgoing current and an incoming current, that incoming current that's natural is our longing to return. So we have this inherent impulse to return and remember, and when we can cultivate the longing, it serves us to follow that inner impulse that's already there. So I think we need longing, and I think we don't need it. We have it. We want to cultivate it, I guess is what I want to say. And then also humility. I think it's really vital to understand that we don't create this energy, and to bow to it and say, thank you for giving me this gift of life where I have the opportunity to remember and return to the truth of who I am. Thank you. Like, to have a certain humility about it, to like softens the ego. It does. It's like, I did not create this energy. I am breathing. My heart is beating because I've been given this gift and this opportunity to consciously know the truth of who I am. I find that necessary.
Yeah, one of the trip ups or traps from my experience when we start using words like humility is all of the meaning that's been accrued in people's minds about, well, this means you're less than and you're not worthy and you're grovel in the dirt and hope somebody doesn't step on you. And whereas the other meaning for it is like what you're saying, it's this recognition that the way of mastery says it is, I don't know who created me or when I was created.
Right.
So just begin right there. I'm not driving the whole bus. I do have dominion over where I focus my thoughts, and that's a creative force. It's going to have a real impact in my life, and yet I'm like everybody else. I'm just a part of this flow.
Yes.
And then there's the ancient Aramaic definition of humility that looks something like this ability to look for and see the highest and best in another, whoever you're looking at, and then choose to cooperate only with that. Because, there might be sadness, anger, fear, woundedness, and the results of that coming out of that person, but there's also the same connection to source that's in me.
Yes.
And if I can tap into that, if I can align the antenna here, as you're talking about with the cerebral spinal fluid as a conductor for this energy, if I can get in alignment with that, it changes my perception and the whole experience.
I love that. Yes.
It's like that ancient Aramaic definition for prayer, something similar to set a trap for God, or to align your antenna to receive this same energy you're talking about, this animating life force energy.
Mm-hmm. It will teach us if we're willing.
Yes, and asking to be taught moment to moment.
I love that, asking to be
Rilke,
taught.
the poet Rilke said, we must learn to live in the question. We need to learn to live in a questioning state, because whenever any mind asks a really good question, that mind is not capable of comprehending the answer.
Yes.
If the perfect full force answer were to respond every time a mind asked a really good question, it would sound like gibberish. It would sound like coming from a language they don't speak. It would sound like vibrations from another dimension that are trying to break through. There wouldn't be ability to comprehend. We must learn to live in that questioning state. I'm paraphrasing Rilke a little here. And if we do learn to live and get comfortable with the not knowing and the questioning state, we might live along someday into an answer.
Or we would stop caring if there was an answer.
Yes. The answer is you don't need the answer with the conscious logical frontal lobes, right?
Exactly.
But it's like, people say, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, if you have a kindergarten class or a first grade class and you have somebody talking about science and they say, well, how do they get those rockets to launch satellites and stay in orbit? And you can have the NASA scientists come and explain to that class, and they can't understand a tiny, tiny fraction. Let that person go through college and grad school with an emphasis on science and physics and then hear that lecture and wow, do they get it?
Yes.
That's us.
Yes.
We can't know what our minds ache to know, but that longing is a good thing, right? Because it's that energy bringing us back to the source.
It is. It's yes, and we want to appreciate the separateness that we have because we're longing for the homecoming within. So we want to not numb that the longing for homecoming. Because if you think about it, the soul is calling to us. My oldest son is a composer, and he wrote this piece it was a long time ago called Fikr, which is a Persian word for call of prayer to attention. And so he started out with this slow, like 3 minute gongs and just this beautiful. And then after 3 minutes, this frenetic violin came on, and all this freneticism came on top. But there was this undertone, if you could listen deep enough, there was this call to prayer, this call to home. And that's what's going on inside of us. Our mind is frenetic. It's, fickle. It's distractible. It's everywhere. And yet there's this calling to home happening inside of us all the time. But we have to get still enough to hear it. It's like, and yet the aching of separation will help us want to get still enough and learn to, build our capacity, I guess is what I would say.
And then as we are experiencing it, right, this
Yeah.
call to just being with it and experience it, if we can just either watch how the mind wants to label it as something negative,
Yeah. Yes.
or
Yes.
or just notice that every judgment and label carries with it a tightness or a tension, then we can
Yes.
let go of that. And
Yes.
then we get ushered into an experience that we can't get through the conscious logical frontal lobes of the
Right.
brain.
Right. So true. So true.
So that idea of how we've been trained by our culture, our parents, they did the best they could, but we've been trained to interpret these energies as bad or wrong, whether it's the longing, the yearning, the loneliness, whatever, rather than just observing them.
Well, I think also if we haven't trusted people, or then why would we trust this energy? And I think that's why experimentation, or you say asking questions, is like, okay, did this energy hurt me? I mean, I think we have to question, did it hurt me? No, actually, it didn't. But we do need to be in our own laboratory and be asking the questions so I can go, okay, if I go a little bit deeper inside and I rest a little bit more and I use my breath and I find a little bit more stillness, is there danger in here? Because
Yeah.
we're used to watching for danger, we have to check it inside. Is there danger here? And the answer is no.
Yes,
But if you
and just a minute. And if the answer comes back yes, breathe and soften because it's probably an errant
Well, and
message.
then check it again.
Yes.
Like, what is dangerous then? How am I thinking this is dangerous? Because life energy, it's like a waterfall. The more it flows, the more intense it is. It's not like, it's compelling. It's dynamic and it's powerful. And so just to go, okay, is this power hurting me? It might be intense, it might be whatever, but then to keep asking the question over and over. But I think that what happens is if our mind is saying, see, it's dangerous, it'll perceive danger when there is
Yes,
no danger.
exactly.
And that's, when I've been with my teaching team, we've had to really work this out. I'm like, okay, go inside and I'm doing it. I'm asking, is there danger here? I'm like, actually, no, there isn't. It feels intense sometimes and hard, but I also feel cared for in it inside. Like I feel a warmth or something that can hold me. And also for me, I think when I was surviving the abuse with my father, I did go to a holy state of consciousness to survive. Like I really went to a state of consciousness where I felt grace. I felt held by grace, mercy, and love. And I don't think there's any other way I could have survived, honestly. But it was associated with my trauma. I didn't understand it was me. Like,
Yes.
I had to go.
Yes.
It took me a while. I don't need trauma to have that.
But
But
I really like how you talked about in the book that at this younger age, the mind doesn't have the capacity
right.
to blame the outside. So
Right.
5 or 6 or whatever your age. Before that, when these bad things are happening, it's as natural as my next breath to think, oh, that's because I'm bad or wrong, or I screwed up, or
Yeah.
and in some silly way, little way from the human perspective, that might help me feel like, okay, if I just change this or that I'm doing, then I'll get to safety. Or if I
Yeah.
please the outside person, if I change me, if I'm the problem, then I can change me. And it's that weird little twist.
Yeah.
So you
Weird.
download all of these beliefs and thoughts and conclusions that go through as you're just going through your life, whether there's a trauma event or not, and that just gets solidified, and then you
Yeah.
live from that. And
Exactly.
part of this process is learning to question even that,
Yeah.
question everything I believe about myself and the world around me.
Yes. In reference, the ideal wireless pattern, the soul is operating through form to remember itself. It's designed. We didn't design it. Energy can't move without it. If that's there happening, then how can I use that as a reference point? I think we need reference points. If we don't have reference points, we'll just keep doing the same thing. And our reference point hopefully is accurate and life-giving, So for me, I think I'm really glad I liked physics. I'm glad that I was curious about energy movement in a way that I could understand human consciousness, because it gave me a reference point to true. And I'm still truing to it. I don't think we are 100% there. We are working towards that. We're in choice over and over and over again at any given moment. And what are we referring to in that choice? So I think it's a lifelong path.
Well, and what I really like about your book and the way you're talking about it is that you're referencing this energy, and as energy, it's always in motion. And if you are aware of the energy, just to discern that, oh, there's a little bit of something there, and I'm not even going to put words on it, because if I don't put words on it, these energies that come up in me, there's some pretty solid research that suggests that in about 90 seconds, the energies that I call emotions are going to run their course,
Yeah.
unless I keep banging the gong, right? If I'm
Exactly.
thinking about this energy or that energy or this
Yes.
emotion, and I give it a word, and then because the mind is so well trained, it races off into explanations about how and why that's happening and who's responsible. I can keep that going for months, years,
Oh, months.
decades.
Because if you watch kids, they run through emotions fast, and it comes, rises, explodes, and falls down, but if you get the mind involved, it just recapitulates.
Perpetuate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For decades, I've talked to people about how just watch babies, watch little kids, toddlers. They're upset and big crocodile tears, and and then you change their focus of attention, and they're smiling, but the tears are still dripping, and they're happy. And it's just this instantaneous connection without all the labels and judgments and self-referential thoughts is where we started. And this is, one way of thinking about when the scriptures say we got to return and be like little children, living without the judgment, right? Living with the potential to experience and discern, but not get tight or tense to try and push it away or hold on to something in that state of that wide open experience like we were when we were infants. We do better as adults if we can train ourselves to that.
Yes.
The healing starts to happen automatically if we train ourselves to that.
Yes.
And the healing doesn't need me to think about how it works. It just does what it does.
Yeah.
So if you would get centered, take a breath, think about what we've talked about so far, all the various things that we could go in different directions. What's something you want to either go back and reference again or highlight that we haven't even touched on yet from your body of work or this book?
I would like to head into the everyone section of the book because I've applied it to human and social development. I've really studied. I studied gender in leadership and looked at what are the qualitative research that I did and compared it to quantitative. And then I started looking at racial dynamics and all the intersections of class, race, gender, religion, and how those forces shape us beyond what we understand and create divisiveness instead of unity. And in all my coaching clients, I do have people unpack their intersectional shaping so that they're not just automatically absorbing what society has shown them as if it's accurate because society is human designed and not replicating life energy or source energy. And so when you get into that part of my book, I share my own lived experiences in terms of how I shut down my knowing and how I had to reawaken my knowing, and then how could I apply it to create social fabric or social systems that reflect life energy, that life is in everyone and everything. And because race is at the bottom of every intersection, if you look at anything, race is always at the bottom, whether it's like infant mortality or housing or economics. So I deliberately looked at like, how does life energy operate inside of us? And there is a one river that we could say links us to the source of life or all of creation. And we call that river ether. And out of that river, all the other rivers flow. And ether operates through our joints in our body, which is very fascinating. So I was like, what if I bring diverse groups of people together, whether I'm in the prison or intentionally building diverse groups of people, or in organizations, and we just connect at the wrist, not like touchy-feely, like I want to personally connect with you, but like looking at it as a science experiment that we're connecting ether to ether here. And just seeing what would happen. And I started watching that life current. Then the group became one system, and the life energy started running through the whole group and required every living system to become animated. So rather than social systems say you have value, you don't have value, this living energy says we all have value. And we all deserve to be radiant and fully alive. And just watching people that are normally marginalized come to life in a diverse community has just like, it's something that I want the world to experience and see. So when I just did the book and documentary premiere, it was in a historically Black theater in Columbus, Ohio. It was probably 50% diverse, racially diverse, and all kinds of diversity. There were about 300 people there, and we built collective power by the end. And to feel that in that room is so restorative. I want everyone to experience that because forests are biodiverse. They thrive best with biodiversity. Exactly. And we don't know how to do that because we haven't been socialized. And so that's something that's really vital to me that I bring out at the end of the book. So it's like me, you, and everyone. In the book Portal, we're putting a trailer for the documentary. I'm working right now to get licensure for the documentary because at first I was just going to put it in there, but I want to create those experiences in person. So I want the documentary to travel with me, or you can buy it and show it at home, because I want us to create those experiences together through the documentary with me being there, so because people, when I did the book signing that night, people were coming up to me and saying, I came in here disconnected and I'm leaving reconnected, and I'm leaving restored in a way I didn't know was possible in a room like this. And I had so many people come up to me and say that I want that. I want that for as many people that want it too. I want that. So that's what I would say here.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think about, you say race is at the bottom of things, and my mind goes, yeah, but that's a made up term, right? It's skin color, or it's, geographic location, but we're all just part of that same flow of energy that you talked about. So every level of, applying a thought and then a word and then my history of experience to something removes me every step of the way from the actual direct experience.
Right. But it's important to me to make sure that when we're building collective power, that there is diversity.
Yeah, you need it, right? It's all
we
of
need it.
And to be able to see that our judgments about bad or wrong, different, just the silliness of the programming, right?
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And it's at the level that cannot experience what you want us to experience, what's available.
Totally. Yeah.
The way of mastery in the first part of the book says, listen, this is a pathway, not about the intellect. The intellect was never designed to be your I've changed it to say your primary user interface with life, right? To use the computer analogy. And Einstein said, to phrase him, we've been given a precious gift and a faithful servant. The precious gift is the intuitive mind, the ability to connect to that source that you're referring here. The faithful servant is the conscious logical mind. The problem is we're living in a culture that's forgotten the precious gift. We aren't
Yes.
training people to tune into this energy
Yeah.
flow you're talking about, or their ability to have insight, intuition, inspiration, creativity flowing through them. We don't train that into our kids anymore, but we do train them to make sure they've got the right answer, and we punish them if they get it wrong, and we reward them if they get it right. There's so much conditioning to rely on these frontal lobes, but that was never how we were designed to interact with the world. And so
Exactly.
the more we can make that shift to this awareness of the gift,
Yes.
and move the faithful servant out of the form of master, which it is in this culture, right?
Yeah.
Intellect is everything. Accumulation of stuff and money is everything. The more we move out of that, the more we usher ourselves into an experience that
Yes.
there aren't any words for. And you're doing that in this collective. So let me ask about the documentary. You say you're working on the licensing for it. It's finished, right?
Yeah,
You've
we
had the
premiered
premiere,
it
yeah.
already. Yes.
You've had the premiere. So what's the status there, and what can the audience expect about when they might be able to tap into this?
Well, here's what I would say is there will be a trailer in the book portal, which you can get to the book portal either through the book, or you can get it to it by going to my website, unifyingsolutions.com. In the front, it says book portal, and you can click into there. Like I said, there's meditations, there's a journaling workbook that you can do with or without the book. There's teaching videos. We're working to be able, you can buy the documentary and use it at home, or you can have me come create an event like I did, so that we will show the documentary, but also have the experience. So it's, and I'll read some from the book, and the documentary is absolutely beautiful. It's so well done. I really appreciate Mark Schmitter. He created it for me. So with Ajay Baker. And so I want to travel and bring this to people so that we can come together and have this experience, because that's what I want.
Okay, so the book is titled It's Deeper Than That: Pathway to a Vibrant, Purposeful, and Liberated Life by Suzanne Roberts. I love how you talked about, I think when you went to learn polarity for the first time, or maybe it wasn't polarity, but some kind of energy work, and you said, can you help me with my neck? And versus that, it's deeper than that. And that's what, it stayed with you all the way into the title of your book. I love that. Well, I greatly appreciate your taking time to meet with us today, and I look forward to watching the documentary and sharing with you some of the similarities between the body of work that gave rise to Journey's Dream and what you're doing. But perhaps that'll be a different conversation for us. So,
well, thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate who you are and how you're being with all of this too. And thank you.
Well, you're entirely welcome and deserving. And who I am and how I'm being with all of this, something that's accessible to all of us if we just keep going back to the tools or the wisdom or the experiential practices that have been laid out for thousands of years.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to our future contacts.
Suzanne Roberts is the founder of Unifying Solutions. She's a coach, an author, a facilitator, and speaker with over 5 decades of experience guiding individuals, leaders, and systems toward generating sustainable change. She's the creator of The Great Reconnection. He supports visionary leaders, change makers, and purpose-driven individuals to unlock clarity, restore alignment, and live with vibrancy, fostering personal and collective liberation. She lives in Akron, Ohio with her husband and 3 dogs, finding restoration in nature and joy with family and friends. She recently premiered her new book and documentary titled It's Deeper Than That.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.